Hello everybody, and welcome back. And today I want to talk to all of you about stats in World of Warships, your personal stats in particular. And by the way, this is not an easy video because a lot of times you got to be very careful what you say as well, right? Because people have a tendency of treating stats in, I guess, one of two camps, right? You have people who are very pro stats, and then you have people who are very almost anti stats. They almost don't want to listen to statistics at all. And I think a lot of this is caused because people use stats to judge other people, right? Oh, you're a 47%er, you're terrible. Or you're a potato or a tomato, whatever. You can't be very good, etc. And sometimes you'll have people who are unicums who will talk down to somebody who doesn't do very well and use it as almost a put down. And that is wrong. That is very, very wrong because stats shouldn't be used in a way to judge. What stats should be used for is a way to analyze your own play, to figure out what kind of problems you might be having, and then trying to figure out if there's a way to maybe adjust something, or if there's something that you can do to make yourself a better player. First things first, I guess, before I even get into that, there's a couple of fundamental basic things that I should talk about. One of them is WTR rating. Right? This is a thing that a lot of people kind of look up your stats, go, oh, your WTR rating says you are very bad, or you're below average, or you're average, or you're unicum, etc. And they use that as a way to judge. But this is a big problem because WTR as a rating is pretty fundamentally flawed, in my opinion. If you look at the way that WTR rating is explained, it looks primarily for average damage, average kills. In fact, damage and kills account for 80% of the rating, and then 20% is win rate. This is a very flawed metric because it doesn't really address many other aspects of the game that are important. And a lot of this also has to do with the fact that Wargaming's data points really aren't provided as well. So things like air kills or capture defense points, I think that's all bugged right now. So I think this is really all the numbers they can work with. But unfortunately, these numbers, if you just use this as a way to judge people, kind of flawed. One of the other big reasons, of course, is that WTR can be massively padded. So let me sort of show you as an example what I mean here. So I'm just going to look myself up. In fact, I've already got myself pulled up here. And here's a way, for example, how you could massively pad your stats so that all you would see is unicum, right? So let's take a look at all of my ships. And I'll sort it by my WTR rating. Now you'll notice that out of ships that I've played a reasonable number of battles in, I have a Farragut where my WTR is 2,194. This is one of my higher performing ships that I've played quite a bit in. My average damage in the ship is quite high, and of course my kill to death is quite high as well. So I'm getting a decent number of kills, my damage is high, win rate is really high. So of course I have a sky high WTR here. So if I wanted to farm and pad my WTR, all I could do is play my Farragut every day and get it up to like 1,000 battles, let's say, in a Farragut. And as long as I can maintain these stats, which isn't too hard, I should be able to get my WTR all the way into the super unicum range if I wanted to. The same would occur if I were to play the Furutaka, or if I played something like even the Kawachi, right? If I decide to play this Kawachi more, and I've played Kawachi quite a bit, not on this account, but in others, and I know roughly my Kawachi stats are roughly in this range, although the win rate's usually quite a bit lower. Sample size is also very important, but we'll get to that a little bit later. As long as I play ships that I know that I can really get high WTR, and I just keep playing those ships, I will be able to pad it. It's one of the reasons why WTR is a flawed metric, right? Any single number that you use as a way to judge somebody, that's usually a flawed metric. Let's talk about something like some of the other numbers people use. One of the other numbers people use is win rate. They'll look at win rate and go, hey, win rate, that's a very important metric. Well, true, win rate is important, but at the same time, win rate can also be massively padded. If you want to pad your win rate, play in a 3-man division. If you got a good 3-man division, you can massively pad up your win rate. So again, using my own stats as an example first, if I take a look at my solo win rate, you'll notice that my overall solo win rate has been about 59%, even though I'm still maintaining unicum stats in terms of damage and everything else, right? But my win rate solo is 59%. But if I play a 2-man, my win rate goes up a little bit more to 60%. But if I play 3-man, my overall win rate jumps up to 72.25. Because obviously, when you are able to have a division that works together, you're likely to get higher win rate. So again, if you just use win rate to judge people, it's also a flawed metric. Well, what about average damage or kill-death ratio? Are those good numbers to work with? Well, I mean, WTR, this is another explanation of WTR, is that when it calculates average damage, it's comparing your average damage for that ship to the average across the server, and then it assigns you a rating. So, in a way, WTR's average damage metric is better than the one on the actual World of Warships page. On the World of Warships page, when you see average damage caused per battle and the kill-death ratio, these are numbers that can be pretty massively padded as well. I mean, if you want to see high average damage, play tier 10s frequently. Your average damage in a tier 10 battle, especially if you play some of the stronger ships, easily 100k plus per battle if you're a decent player, right? So average damage not really a very solid metric either, because again, it's something that can be padded. Same is true for sort of global kill-death ratio. You want to pad that, play something like a carrier. You'll pad it as well. So, like I mentioned earlier, individual stats, not all that helpful. But, statistics, if you look at them in more detail and you start to focus on specific things, can help you improve your gameplay. Now, before I get there, there's one other thing I want to talk about, and that has to do with sample size. Sample size is a very important thing when you're talking about statistics. Let's take a look at my highest WTR ship. It's the Arpeggio Nachi. Now, what do you notice about my Arpeggio Nachi stats? Well, you probably noticed that I've only played one battle with my Nachi. I have a 100% win rate. I have 110k damage, so I did really, really well in that one battle. Is that reflective of how I would perform in a Nachi in every single battle? Is it statistically significant? Nope, not at all. The sample size is way too small and is not significant. Now, if you want to talk about significant, you probably have to look at something where I have more battles in which case my Nagato stat or my Gneisenau stat or my Saipan stat, these are stats that are significant because larger sample size, it's starting to show roughly how I would perform when I play that ship. Let's take a look at the Nagato first, because this is a ship that there are people who absolutely believe this is like the crappiest battleship in the game, right? I've seen this in in-game chat, I've seen it on the forums. People complain about the Nagato a lot, and a lot of times, other players go, well, it's a player to keyboard sort of issue. It's not the ship, and those people don't believe them. Well, hopefully in the next little while, I can show you maybe the reasons why. Why sometimes people don't perform well, while others might be performing quite well with it. But anyways, going back to sample size. My Nagato statistic, 122 battles, this is significant. Why? Because, after all these battles, that's my average in damage across so many battles. That's my average win rate across all of these battles. So, most likely to be significant. If I play Nagato, that's roughly how I will perform, with, of course, some battles where I'll do way better and some battles where I might do a little bit worse. But on average, when I play Nagato, I'm going to be pretty damn consistent. So let's look at another player. Now, all these players, I've asked them for their permission to use their stats in the video. And let's start with PC Destroyer of Everything. Now, PC Destroyer of Everything is, if you look at the rough stats, 48% win rate, 29,000 average damage, kill death ratio 0.93 people, and of course if you look at the WTR page, PC Destroyer of Everything is in all time is an average player, recently has become a little bit better, has reached the green levels. But still, when people look at PC Destroyer of Everything stats, might go, right, like you are not very good at all. But if you say that, that's not really going to help PC Destroyer of Everything. He's not going to get better with somebody just saying that. What stats is really useful for is looking at individual ships and then figuring out from those stats whether or not you're doing something right or you're not doing something as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at Nagato, because that's a ship that I think we could start with. Also one of PC Destroyer's main ships, actually. So Nagato. 95 battles played, 47 victories, giving a win rate of 49%. Now, win rate's not very good. Damage caused on average, 52,160. Main battery hit ratio of 26%. Highest damage ever caused, 140,000, which means that PC has had some one battle, like this one-off battle where he did amazing. And this is another thing you have to understand, is that even if you are somebody who is average, you can still have those one-off battles that were absolutely amazing. But what statistics wants to really sort of deal with is, on average, how are you doing? Like on most days, what kind of a player are you? And by using that instead of the one-off result, you can get a much better picture of who you are as a player and what you need to work on. Let's look at PC's Nagato. So 52,000 average damage. Well, that average damage it's all right, right? I mean, it's not amazing, but 52k is okay. And the main battery hit ratio for PC at 26% isn't the bottom. It's sort of like middle tier main battery hit ratio, but 52,000 damage. Is there something that PC could work on there? Maybe, although we're not exactly sure what yet because we haven't had a chance to compare. But we will come back to that in a second. The first thing and the most visible thing with PC stats to me, without looking at anybody else for comparison's sake, is the win rate and the battle survived. And battle survived has some correlation to with the amount of damage you do. Take a look at battle survived and you'll notice that out of 95 battles, PC only survived 32 of them, giving him a survival rate somewhere in that 30% range. That means that in a lot of battles, PC actually gets sunk. Now, if you get sunk, you can't do any more damage. So again, that partially explains the damage caused metric. If you're not surviving your battles, you're not able to stay late game, continue to output damage. So one of the things that you want to work on, if it's a survival issue, is two things: positioning and armor angling. Are you well positioned? Are you with your own team, or are you off by yourself? Are you being caught out of position by enemy ship and being focused and being focus fired to death? First thing to consider. Second, when you are engaging enemy ships, are you angled? Are you actively thinking about at what angle am I dealing with enemy threats? Those are all things you want to think about. So the first thing that I would do as PC to maybe improve my overall performance with the Nagato is to start thinking about survival and to start thinking about armor angling. Try to increase the amount of time I'm in the battle, because the longer I'm in the battle, the more of an influence I can put into that particular battle. Now that doesn't mean, the big thing of course for a lot of people is like, oh, you want improved survival? I'm going to go hide in the back. That's not what you want to do, because hiding in the back means you're going to have a lower main battery hit ratio because you're not going to be hitting as much. Your damage goes down, then you're less useful for the team. What you are doing when you're working on that survival stat is really thinking about, am I with my team? Am I by myself? Right? Those are all things that you have to consider. Am I in a position where I can output damage and yet at the same time keep myself somewhat alive? And you'll find that with a lot of ships, they're sort of the happy zone in sort of distance where, you know, they're not taking as much fire from the enemy while they're still able to output damage, and even when they do take fire, they're a bit more protected. So you have to sort of find that distance. Now for the Nagato, for me, I've always found, again, that mid sort of ish range to be quite good. So not close, not like German battleships where you got to get to like 8 kilometers, but in that sort of mid range between maybe 10 to about 15 kilometers. That's where I've always been kind of happy with the Nagato. And so if I was PC, that's the first thing I would worry about, is better positioning, and then of course when engaging enemy ships to worry about armor angle. Victories, like I said, win rate can be padded if you're in the division, so I'm not really going to say win rate is that important of a thing in isolation by itself, because unfortunately we can't tell on the main site whether it's solo or 2-person division or 3-person division. We just can't really tell. So now we compare PC stat to Cruiser Kuma Kai. Now, Cruiser Kuma Kai has higher win rate, according to the main statistics overview. Higher average damage caused per battle, kill-death ratio is a bit better too. Now, Cruiser Kuma Kai also has a Nagato. Let's take a look. Nagato, 114 battles, again, a statistically significant amount. take a look at what's different here. And you'll notice that the average damage of 59,312 is a little bit higher, although main battery hit ratio is identical. It's the same as PC. So what's happening there? PC and Cruiser Kumakai in all their battles are pretty much landing the same number of shells on an enemy ship. And yet, over all these battles, Cruiser Kumakai has an average damage advantage of almost, 52,000 to 59,000. So about 7,000 damage there. What's happening? Not only that, also, if you look at Cruiser Kumakai, also higher win rate, but again, like I said, win rate can be padded, and also higher survival. So there's a chance here that what's happening is that Cruiser Kumakai is surviving that much longer into the battle, in every single battle. And that longer survival in the battle is allowing him to do that little bit more damage, because the main battery hit ratios are the same. The other possibility, of course, is that Cruiser Kumakai's shots are landing on enemy ships in better places, which means that, for example, they both shoot an enemy ship, but depending on, let's say, lead, and let's say Cruiser Kumakai's lead is a little bit better, he's landing the extra citadel per battle compared to PC Destroyer. Over the long run, better damage. So if I was PC and I want to improve, I would definitely also want to check my aim. Like, am I aiming in the right spots? Am I getting the right kind of damage, right? Am I getting the citadel hits versus am I getting an overpen? Still counts as a hit, but one is going to do significantly more damage. And then, of course, we're going to look at my own stats for the Nagato, which I've sort of talked about earlier. Take a look at my Nagato stats, and you'll notice something very different. Again, ignoring win rate for a minute, take a look at my survival rate. Much, much higher survival rate. I think my Nagato survival rate is somewhere in the 60% range. So that means I'm staying alive in the battle all the way till the end. The longer that I survive in the battle, the more I'm able to do damage. Hence why you see my average damage number being very, very high, 82,000. So I'm now almost 30,000 higher than what PC is doing in Nagato. My hit ratio is also much, much higher at 29%. Mind you, I'm not even the best Nagato player on the server. There's a better Nagato player where if you look at his main battery hit ratio, it's like 32%, I think, or something like that. And average damage is over 100,000. So, there's still people out there who are crazy good with certain ships. But that's the thing, right? If I was PC Destroyer and I was looking at Chase's stats and going, why is Chase doing better in a Nagato? The statistics are saying, hey, look, survival is important. And at the same time, with survival, better hit rating, right? You hit the enemy more, you're going to do more damage. So that's stats. That's, for a battleship. If you look at the stats in detail, you should find ways to help yourself improve. Now, again, some people might say, okay, well, battleships are battleships. What about other ships, right? So let's take a look at in particular, something else. Maybe a destroyer. So I've got Tsundere Heavy Cruiser here, and Tsundere Heavy Cruiser, if I remember, plays something like a Farragut. Take a look at Tsundere's Farragut play. Average damage, 18,000. Main battery hit ratio is pretty good at 44%, so actually getting the good hits in there. Play 38 battles. Victory amount, 53% of the battles won. 0 battles survived. So what does this tell me about the way Tsundere is playing the Farragut? Well, most likely Tsundere is rushing in, maybe grabbing a cap, which is the reason why it would be nice to have a cap stat as well. Probably engaging other destroyers up in a close range fight. So that 18,000 damage is roughly like a destroyer and a half, maybe, when you're dealing with like the tier 6 things. Getting in there, engaging that close range fight, thereby having that high main battery hit ratio, and then dying, therefore not surviving battle. So let's take a look at a comparative stat first from somebody else, and then let's take a look at sort of what Tsundere Heavy Cruiser could do to improve. So let's look at Dresscar. And Dresscar, again, if you take a look, has slightly higher win percentage, 58%, higher average damage, kill death ratio 1.86. So compared to Tsundere, if you look at it, higher stats all around. But let's take a look at specifically the Farragut for Dresscar first, right? So let's look at the destroyers. Where's that Farragut? Right here. So 29 battles played, so pretty close to that 30 battle statistical significance thing. And you'll notice, very interestingly, the first stat you'll look at is 76% win ratio. 76% win rate, 11 battles survived, so a little bit better survival rate than Tsundere, who had absolutely like 0 battles survived. But more importantly, take a look at Dreskar's average damage. 31,000. So that's quite a bit more damage. Warships destroyed 1.38, so that's definitely more than Tsundere. Tsundere had 0.66, right? So Dreskar is probably not running in there and getting killed right away. Although Dreskar's average hit ratio with main guns a little bit lower at 39%. Torpedo hit ratio is higher at 11% compared to Tsundere's 6, which tells you that Dreskar might be doing a little bit better ambushing. So if I was Tsundere and I was looking at Dreskar stats and I'm like, okay, what can I work on? Well, the first thing that most likely I would consider is there a way to up the amount of damage I do? When you're playing USN gunboats, rushing into a cap and then dying early on is not the ideal strategy. You're really not doing your team good if that's what you're doing. And the reason why is because the USN gunboats are more for harassment, right? So they're very good at harassing. They're small, agile ships that can harass things at a distance, set things on fire. They also have that very useful smoke, and USN smoke is amazing. And if you help your team with smoke, you can get much higher win rate as well. Although, mind you, as a reminder again, win rate can be padded in divisions. So I'm not really looking at win rate as a stat. But Dreskar is surviving more battles and doing more damage. And so overall, going to perform better than Tsundere in the Farragut. Then, of course, I go ahead and look at my own Farragut play, and my Farragut is over here. I've played 23 battles, obviously not as many, but I have an 87% win ratio in my Farragut. Now, I've survived 15 of my 23 battles, so much, much higher survival rate. Now, take a look at my average damage cost. I have 56,000 damage cost. So if Dreskar was looking at my stat and going, okay, so Chase is doing 56,000 damage, how's he doing that? Well, my main battery hit ratio is higher, 42%. So here, even at distance, potentially, I'm getting still the hits against ships. So if I was Dreskar and I'm like, okay, maybe I can improve my hit ratio with my guns, that's something you want to do. Improve long-range shooting with the rather high arc of the USN 127mm guns. So if I was Dreskar, that's what I would do. Torpedo hit ratio, about the same. I'm at about 10%, so we're all about the same there in terms of ambush. So if Tsundere was looking at Dreskar's stat and thinking, okay, I got to survive a bit longer, maybe just hang back a little bit more, utilize my ability to stand off and harass, and then also lay smoke for my team to improve my win ratio, and also improve my survival rate and my damage and everything. So if Dreskar was looking at my stat, Dreskar's probably thinking, okay, so what I need to improve is my damage and also my main battery hit rate. And since, a lot of times you are going to be shooting a bit more range, maybe that's what I need to work on in order to improve. And so those are the real uses of stats. Not to judge individuals based on some overall number like a WTR rating or a win rate or just average damage stat up there. That's not helpful. What's helpful is looking at stats, of individual ships, comparing them to better players, and going, why is it that that other person is having that much more success? What are they doing with that ship that's allowing them to win more, get more experience, get more damage, get more of everything than what I'm getting? And that is the real use of stats. So for those of you who, have either looked at stats and not really known what to look for, or you've tried to ignore stats because people have judged you, look at your stats again. But instead of being judgmental about yourself or whatnot, think about how you can improve. Because at the end of the day, in order to get better, a growth mentality is the most important thing. Think of, I'm going to improve, rather than, oh, I'm a terrible player. Because if you hit yourself with that sort of defeatist thoughts, like, oh, I'm just terrible, I can't get any better, you're not doing yourself any favors. But if you look at yourself and be honest with your numbers and say, hey, there's room for improvement, then you're likely to become a much better player in the long run. Anyways, folks, I hope this video has been helpful. Of course, if you do have any questions, you are free to leave those in the comment section below. I'll try my best to answer them. Aside from all that, you all take care, have a good one, and remember, folks, growth mentality. So, reanalyze your stats, have a growth mentality, and you're going to become a much better player. Anyhow, folks, take care, have a happy new year, and I'll talk to all of you again soon.